Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Wisdom Wednesday. I'm Dr. Jayne Bock, a Bakerpedia influencer, and I'm here to share some baking wisdom with you today. All right, today I wanted to get into azodicarbonamide, or ADA. You'll have to excuse me. I'm recovering from a pretty bad bout of allergies, so my voice is going to be a little froggy today. So I wanted to talk about azodicarbonamide because while I don't come down on either side as to whether you should use it as an ingredient or you shouldn't use it as an ingredient, one area where I do have a very strong opinion is I'm not exactly appreciative of how it came to be that we started removing it from formulations and ingredient labels. And I'll tell you why. Really, the reason is just that there's not really good science behind it. Like I said, I don't care if you use it or you don't use it. I'm ambivalent. But what really came to be was a series of fear-mongering infographics and pieces of information by consumer activists who have no background or understanding in science, and basically scared the public into demanding that ADA be removed from formulations. I'm sure we all remember this from about roughly a decade ago when the Food Babe declared that ADA shouldn't be in bread because it's a yoga mat chemical. So the first thing about this argument is that there are a lot of ingredients that we use in baking that have multiple uses in multiple types of products. Water and salt are two really good examples of these. We use water and salt in a lot of different industrial processes and a lot of different industrial products. So just because an ingredient that we use in a bakery formulation shows up in another product that is not intended for food consumption does not inherently make it a bad ingredient and does not imply that you shouldn't be using it in your baking formula. I mean, if that were the case, we wouldn't be able to use water or salt, which are my two examples here. The other thing is that if you actually dive into the chemistry of azodicarbonamide, the safety risks associated with using it in bakery formulations is actually quite low. So let me talk a little bit about the chemistry here. First of all, just to set a basis for understanding, ADA is typically used at levels of about 5 to 25 parts per million in formulations, although it can go up to 45 parts per million and is generally recognized as safe in the US. So ADA is a fast-acting oxidizer. It's added at mixing, and it reacts with moisture and flour to stimulate disulfide bond formation and reduce mixing time. It does tend to produce drier, more cohesive dough that tends to have better handling properties, and it can result in finer crumb structure in the actual baked goods. So it does have a function in the formulation. It's not just there for the sake of adding it. It is an oxidizer that does assist in mixing and dough handling properties. So the big thing is the chemistry. So in the presence of flour and moisture, what happens is that azodicarbonamide reacts with any free sulfhydryl groups and catalyzes the formation of a disulfide bond so that those two free sulfhydryl groups react, form a disulfide bond, and then you have a disulfide bond linked gluten structure. Now, any azodicarbonamide that does not react with flour and moisture actually decomposes in the presence of heat. So you take this dough, maybe all your ADA didn't react. When you put that dough into the oven to bake it into a bread, heat actually starts a decomposition process, and ADA breaks down into semicarbazide and then ethyl carbamate. So there's no azodicarbonamide left in the final bread product. So this is an ingredient that gets used up in the process of bread making, either through the direct formation of disulfide bonds, through direct reaction with moisture and flour, or it gets broken down by the heat in the oven during the process of baking. Now, the risk doesn't come from azodicarbonamide itself. Semicarbazide actually does have some slight carcinogenic risks, but the thing to keep in mind is that the levels are very, very low in the finished bread product. You actually get more exposure to semicarbazide through food contact with glass jar lids. In terms of ethyl carbamate, which also can have some carcinogenic properties, ethyl carbamate occurs at higher levels in alcohol. So the actual risk of ADA is 0 in the bread because no ADA is left in the bread. The risk of its decomposition products, semicarbazide and ethyl carbamate, that risk is actually higher in other food products. Now, you may be asking about the ADA that reacts with the gluten proteins to form the disulfide bonds. What happens to that? It actually gets converted into biurea, and biurea is quickly excreted from the body. So there is no risk from consuming the biurea itself. So at the end of the day, there's not a lot of risk involved in using ADA. And so, like I said, as a result, I am ambivalent about its use. You can choose to use it, you can choose to not use it. I don't really have an opinion there. However, the fear-mongering that went on that led to its removal from formulations and ingredient labels, I think was very, very wrong. And I think this type of fear-mongering is leading us to make a lot of decisions that, first of all, are just not scientifically based, but also that may be detrimental in the long run because we haven't taken an actual look at the science to figure out if there is a need, to follow whatever this fear-mongering advice is telling you to do. So that's the end of my soapbox with azodicarbonamide. Like I said, the risk to human health from bread products is quite low. So if you're using it and you like using it, keep using it. If you're not using it, that's great as well. Just don't tell people that your products are inherently better because you're not using azodicarbonamide. Okay? All right. So that's all I have for my Wisdom Wednesday today. Just if you have any questions, make sure you're joining us in the forums at LinkedIn and Facebook. Just look up the Baking Industry Professionals group on these platforms. And until next time, I will talk to you later. Have a great day.